good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whenever the fuck you're listening. This is Tailgate Trash Talk, Season 2, Episode 14. We're back after a week of holiday leave. Gary, how you doing there, bud?
Good, bud. Hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. Ready to get back to talk college football, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And what better week to take the week off than Thanksgiving, rivalry week. And now we have the conference championships coming up this week. Lots to talk about tonight. We got last week's games. We got this week's games. We got the CFP playoff picture. And we got some head coaching moves in and around college football. We still have some positions, some vacancies out there. So lots of news, lots of stuff to discuss tonight. So let's just get down and dirty with it here. Let's look at last week's games here. Man, lots of stuff here. Lots of stuff to go over. But Gary, I'm interested to see how you feel going into this week. What are your thoughts going into this week, bud?
Yeah, I'm excited for the championship games. We get to kind of see, if TCU can finish the deal, if USC can finish the deal, and what that's going to mean for teams like Ohio State, Alabama. I think the CFP committee made a bold, incorrect statement with Ohio State's ranking and Alabama's ranking. We can talk about that later. I don't want to get too far ahead, but it obviously we're looking at 3 games this weekend, really, or 4 actually, with the SEC championship game that are either going to solidify the 4 teams in that the CFP committee has in right now, or we could see some shakeup, and then there's going to be big debates, right? Is it a 1-loss team from this conference versus a 2-loss team from this conference, et cetera? A 1-loss champion, where do they fall if say Georgia goes down, or TCU, right? If TCU, I think that's the big one, because I think if Michigan loses, despite it being against Purdue, I think they survive because of their Big Ten resume, probably, and the Big Ten bias. TCU is going to be the interesting one for me. Does a 1-loss regular season champion in the Big 12 lose out to a 1-loss non-champion in Ohio State? I think that this week is going to be really interesting to see that. It's gonna either give us really nothing to talk about next week in terms of drama and only preview the playoffs, or we're going to get some drama and we're going to have some really interesting discussions for next week.
Yeah, absolutely. And what if TCU and USC both go down? Because I think you're right. I think if Michigan loses this weekend, I think they will go to number 4. But what if TCU and USC both lose? It'll be TCU's first loss of the season and second loss for USC. And being USC at number 4 there, then does Ohio State and Alabama sneak in there? A 2-loss Alabama sneak in there?
That's going to be really interesting. That's going to be really interesting.
With a 1-loss TCU.
If both of those teams do lose, does Bama leapfrog TCU, who was a regular season champion, right, of the Big 12?
Yeah.
It's going to be really interesting to see how the CFP committee handles that. And I'm a little tossed up because I kind of want to see some different teams in the playoff, having a USC in there, having a TCU in there, some fresh blood. But I also like the drama. And if we get a couple of losses this week, it's going to be really interesting to be able to talk about what the CFP committee does or did, or how they handle that sort of how do they rack and stack those resumes and actually make the decision on who's going to be in the playoffs. So it'll be really interesting. And that's why I'm super excited about this week. It's all come down to this, really. Everybody knows if they win out, they're in, right? That's what the CFP committee each week says. These are the teams that if they win out,
let's not get started on this.
It's supposed to be. Yeah. But this week, more so, obviously, because of the conference championships. If those 4 teams win, they should be the 4 teams in the playoff. I don't see any way that anything really changes if that's the case. But it could be interesting to see. Imagine Georgia going down to LSU, and we got to deal with the controversy there. LSU's the SEC champion, yeah, but you lost to fucking Texas A&M, yada yada. So
yeah. Well, let's take a break from that real quick, because I do want to get back to that. So let's preview or review last week's games. Starting Thursday, this is great. You got Thanksgiving night. You got a good old football game going. Mississippi State, Ole Miss, 24-22. Mississippi State got the job done. And kind of a little bit of a shocker.
Yeah.
But Ole Miss, towards the end of the season there, they started to teeter out a little bit. They were on fire first part. Last part of the season, last 4 games really, is kind of where they teetered out there.
Yeah, it was a mix of things too. It wasn't just one thing you can point to for Ole Miss that kind of was their undoing down the stretch. One game they'd give up 40 points to a team they shouldn't give up 40 points to. The next week they'd score, only 22 against the Mississippi State team that I don't know that they have a really good defense. I've seen them play some good games, but I thought if Mississippi State was going to win this game, it was going to be in the high 30s, and that was going to be a shootout. It's just been weird with Ole Miss, and I don't know if maybe some of the speculation around Lane Kiffin and potentially being on the coaching, job hunt, or at least on the radar for some teams, linked to Auburn potentially, and maybe some of that. The team, it's hard to tune that stuff out, but it's been interesting to see Ole Miss has kind of spiraled here at the end of the season, or tail spun at the end of the season. Good win though to finish the season for Mississippi State in the Egg Bowl here, and you win the rivalry game in your rival's home stadium, and you close the season out with a win over a top 20 team. The Fighting Mike Leaches finished the season on a high note.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. Moving on, Friday, Tulane, Cincinnati. This was a good one. Exciting game, absolutely. Tulane comes out on top 27-24. And it was Luke Fickell's last game as a Cincinnati Bearcat head coach there.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
I am too.
That
you signed the extension in February, I believe.
And I'm surprised where he's going. Maybe more so even than him leaving Cincinnati. They're heading to a bigger conference.
Mm-hmm.
They've kind of put that program on the national map. And Wisconsin has been really down for a couple of years here. And then we had that report mid-season that they spend less on their athletic recruiting program than they spend on tennis balls, I think, for the tennis team, or something crazy. The number was just silly.
Yeah.
I was really surprised that Fickell's going to Wisconsin. I get the Big Ten thing. I know Wisconsin has had a history of being in the picture, but I'm really surprised that it was Wisconsin. And I don't want to ignore Tulane. A great season for them. They're going to finish, I believe they're 15 or 16 right now, or 14 or 15 right now. And if they win their bowl game, they may threaten the top 10 from that conference. And that's going to be consecutive years that they're going to have a team finish in the top 10. A real big deal for them. So that conference is putting itself in the, in the conversation, and consecutive years, they're going to have a team finish pretty high if Tulane can finish the deal.
Absolutely. Moving on, Baylor, Texas. This was a good one as well. Disappointing season for Baylor, but Bjorn Robinson here took over for Texas in this game.
That dude's a hammer.
And and we'll get to him later. But Texas kind of ends the regular season on a high note, and a disappointing season for Baylor, especially coming out of last year as the Big 12 champs last year. High expectations for them this year, and highly disappointing season for the Baylor Bears.
I was really surprised. We've talked a lot about Baylor and Oklahoma State, disappointing seasons for both of them. Lost a bunch of tough games. Didn't really play the same style of ball that we saw last year from both of those teams. So, but yeah, Texas finishes on a high note. They've got Arch Manning coming in. Bijan's probably going to be a top 10 pick in the NFL, maybe at least top half of the first round, I think, for Robinson. And they run up the score a little bit here on Baylor. Baylor hung with them a bit. Real exciting game back and forth, but not a good way to end the season for a Baylor Bears team that I thought they had the program going in a great direction, continuing what Matt Rule started there, but real down year for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Crazy to see, but like you said, Bijan definitely going to be a top 10 NFL draft pick in this upcoming draft. NC State, North Carolina in double overtime.
Yeah.
This was a good one as well. And NC State, fourth string quarterback, getting the job done for the Wolfpack there. Battle of the Carolina's there. Somewhat of a disappointing season for North Carolina too here, but they are in the ACC championship game this weekend against Clemson. But yeah, they kind of ended. They were kind of trending down. They had some close games that shouldn't have really been close, but the future is bright there with Drake May at quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. Real bad way to finish the season here. This isn't a game you want to lose. NC State was starting some jamoke they found in the weight room before the game under center, and North Carolina was preparing for the ACC title game. It might have been the worst thing for them that they had locked that up, and maybe that's kind of where they looked past this game a bit. Not a good way to end the regular season, and they've got Clemson coming up. Gonna really need to rebound here in the ACC championship game to kind of salvage this season.
Yeah, absolutely. UCLA, California. UCLA getting the job done. This was another close game against the Cal Bears, 35-28. UCLA, the Fighting Chippers, they got the job done. And your boy, DR, there got the job done again this week for him, or this past weekend, and they came out on top. So, UCLA and Chip Kelly and company, they're ending the season, on a good note. So it'll be interesting to see where they go bowling.
Yeah,
in the
good
coming
win. Good win to end the season. It didn't look good for a while. They were down to Cal for a good bit of this game, and then they kind of turned it on and took over, and you saw kind of the talent disparity between UCLA and California really, show its head, and they were able to finish. This is one that you didn't want to lose this one going into the end of the season for sure. DTR is going to likely, probably impress people at the combine. I'm curious to see where he ends up. Really athletic guy with a pretty strong arm. I love his leadership on the field. So I'll be curious to see where he goes at the next level. I think he's got, obviously they're going to get a pretty good bowl game, so he's going to have one more chance to really put some good film out there. But for me, that's where right now UCLA, this process of building, it looks like they're kind of headed in the right direction, with this team. So Chip just seems to thrive in the Pac-12. Did it with Oregon, and now he's doing it again with UCLA. I think that they're going to be potentially at the top of the Pac-12 for some years to come. Yeah,
absolutely. I wasn't too keen on them to begin with, but they've proved me wrong. So, Florida State getting the dub, 45-38, and this was a game that was close early on. Then Florida State went up by two scores, and they kind of let Florida back in it at the end there, and it almost cost them. There was a pass interference penalty that was called that shouldn't have been called, and then they missed a face mask penalty at the end of the game that that should have been called.
Yeah.
Both going against and in favor of Florida State there. And we've been talking all season about AR-15 here. And I saw on Twitter, and I sent it to you, like top draft pick.
Oh,
I commented, if you draft him, I hope you lose your job and you don't get another GM job ever again. He is not a top 5 quarterback. He should not go in the first round. I don't even think he's good enough for the second round. He is not that good. And everyone that brings up the comparisons to
my God,
or whoever,
it's ridiculous.
Whoever it is ridiculous. He's not accurate.
Nope.
He's fast. Yeah, I'll give him that. He's elusive. He's tough to bring down. Absolutely. But he's not accurate. I do not see it. And you've been saying it. I've been saying it. Some GM is going to waste their first round pick on him. And I am going to laugh my ass off.
That Twitter user compared him to Lamar Jackson. Like, what are you doing, dude? What are you doing? You're talking about one of the greatest college football players in the history of the game, and you're trying to compare him to a guy who struggles in the SEC East. Like, come on, dude. Come on. Let's get real here. Look at the fucking tape. Watch the guy. Your eyes don't deceive you. There's no magic behind what goes on the field with him. He can't hit the broadside of a barn with a football. He is athletic. He's an athletic guy, but he is not a fucking quarterback. He is not a quarterback at the next level. He to me is an Antoine Randall. He's a guy that should be playing slot wide receiver, and he's a gadget guy. Maybe a Deebo Samuel type at the next level because he is pretty big. He's got pretty good size.
Yeah.
Maybe a Deebo Samuel type that you can really do some interesting things with because every once in a while you can give him something on a jet sweep and let him throw a pass, right, and catch the defense off guard. He is not a quarterback at the next fucking level.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Great win for Florida State there. Love to see them Gators go down. Oh, that was all Friday. Saturday, the big one. One of the big ones, South Carolina, Clemson. The Battle of South Carolina here. South Carolina goes into Clemson 31-30 and upsets the Tigers.
South Kakalaki with all the Beamer swag.
Oh, Spencer Rattler getting the job done. Oh, baby.
Dude, man, he's like a different person since he said he's going to go into the draft. He's looked like a totally different quarterback, dude.
Totally different person. Totally different quarterback. Absolutely.
What's he got? 9 touchdowns his last 2 games?
9 tuds, 9 tuds. 9 tuds.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. Oh, man. Look, that's a great program win. Yeah, that's a great program win. That's one you can hang your hat on. Keep bringing in them recruits, and I think Beamer's got them going in the right direction.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
And like Florida, we love to see Clemson lose.
Right. Georgia Tech, Georgia. This one was close early. And then, as we anticipated, Georgia went on to win 37-14. Basically just getting some wins.
Georgia remembered there was a football game going on.
Yeah. A little turkey hangover.
Yeah. They were clearly something was going on early in that game. Georgia Tech showed up to play early, but Georgia ran away.
Yeah. Michigan, Ohio State, the game.
Yep.
It wasn't much of a game.
Nope. It was a game until halftime.
Yeah, it was a game until halftime. Then the second half came out, and only one team came out of the tunnels. And that was
That's
Michigan.
Exactly right. And then the Big Ten commissioner says instant classic.
What? I get it. I get it. You
3 touchdown game.
You got to fight for your conference, for your teams and everything. I get it.
That's
but
a reckless
statement. That one does not go down into the history of the game. There's a lot better games to choose from than that one. not go up there. Not
Yeah,
one bit.
that
Not
was
when it's
such,
a 3-score game, bud.
that was hard salesmanship.
Yeah. And that's why Kevin Warren is disliked by a lot of Big Ten family.
Yep.
Louisville, Kentucky. Kentucky gets the dub.
What the fuck was Louisville doing at number 25?
I don't know. We mentioned that. We mentioned it. We didn't like it. Didn't like it.
My God.
Whatever. Whatever. They were there. They shouldn't have been. They got exposed. And now news tonight that came out right before we started the pod. Will Levis is going to enter the NFL draft. Bowl game still undecided.
Yeah, I don't expect him to play, to be honest.
I don't either. But as a competitor, I think he might though.
He might. I'm a little up in the air. I don't expect him to play. I think it'd be commendable if he did. Would hate for anybody to get hurt in a bowl game, especially one that is, you just don't have the national championship implications for it. But for me, all jokes about Louisville not being a top 25 team aside, another good win for Stoops and the boys, another win over a top 25 team, whether or not you believe that Louisville should have been top 25. It's another resume builder for a program that's clearly on the upswing in a very, very tough SEC. They're in the better side of the conference with the SEC East, depending on how you view Tennessee's sustainability. It looks like it's Georgia and kind of everybody else pending whether Tennessee can rebuild after this season, losing Hendon Hooker and a couple of the other guys that are going to go in the draft. So for Kentucky, that's the big takeaway for me here, is that this is another resume builder for Stoops in the Wildcats.
Yeah, absolutely. Auburn, Alabama, the Iron Bowl. Really not much of a game here. 49-27. Lots of points were scored, but not much of a game. Never really close. Give Alabama credit for kind of doing what they were supposed to do, but also give Cadillac Williams and Auburn credit for the way they finished the season there. Basically, I think going 4-4 after Cadillac took over there, and they got a new coach now in Hugh Freeze. So that Alabama program, and actually the university as a whole, is, I don't know. I really don't.
Auburn's in a bad place.
And I kept on seeing this, and so I know it's been said and everything, but this last year with Harsin, you made up a story about him, having an affair with whoever, trying to get him fired and everything. And now you actually hired a guy that actually had an affair at his old school, and it comes full circle, I guess. It comes full circle.
Yep. It just shows the nasty underbelly of kind of the corporate mentality of a lot of these universities, because that's a corporate kind of a play, right? We're gonna find some dirt on somebody so we can fire the CEO without paying out his golden parachute or something along those lines. It's grimy, and to me, I know it's an upgrade and it's getting back into a major program for Hugh Freeze after some trepidation at Ole Miss with the recruiting issues, and then obviously the adultery that he's had issues with and whatnot.
Now he can pay his players. Now he can pay them.
Now he can pay them, right? And he's probably going to have the best recruiting class every year now. But like you said, for Auburn, I have to ask the question, right? Was this the right move? Because you've already got the stain, the bad image from the Harsin deal, and you had a guy in Cadillac who was cleaning things up there too. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just that they went 4-4. It was that he took ownership of that program for those 8 games, took ownership of it in the university, took ownership of it with the parents of the players. And I think there's a head coaching gig in his future.
Absolutely.
I don't know that maybe
I think
Auburn wasn't ready to give it to him, but
it's going to be at Auburn in year 3.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Yep.
I could see it. I just think that it's very commendable for him. And you said you already you already tipped your cap to him. I'm going to tip my cap again. What a job he did for the 8 games that he had this year, and just taking ownership of that program.
Yes.
Honestly, for an interim coach to do that, it's above and beyond what an interim coach is asked to do.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Oregon State. Shocker
Wow.
in Corvallis here.
Wow.
Shocker. 38-34, Oregon State. The Beavers get the job done in Corvallis. Man, Oregon
That's a
just didn't.
bad. That's a
That was
bad
a
finish.
bad loss. That was a bad loss for Oregon.
Yeah, and for an Oregon team that still had possible playoff, projection, if they would have won out, they'd be in the catbird seat that USC's in right now. This loss, wow, that's a tough one. And I kept watching. I was kind of watching the score because I was watching. I think I don't remember what other game was on in the same time slot, but I had one main one on, and I kept trying to tune in a little bit to the Oregon one because I was like, man, this game's close. What the fuck's going on? They just couldn't stop an Oregon State offense that honestly at times this year hasn't been very good. That Oregon defense just didn't show up, and Oregon State took advantage. That's a big win for Oregon State, but that's a bad loss for Oregon and Bo Nix.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. All righty. Iowa State, TCU, nothing. That TCU just manhandled it here from the start, as they should, as they needed to. TCU Horned Frogs going into the Big 12 championship game this weekend against K-State. And we'll hear more about TCU here coming up. Michigan State, Penn State. Penn State finishes the season on a high note, 35-16 Penn State. Man, they did not have the lull like they have in the past with Franklin at the helm. And honestly, I'm kind of shocked that they're still ranked right there in that mid teens right there.
Yeah, I'm curious what that is, honestly, because they've got a couple of good wins this year. They've had some strong margins, in a lot of their other wins as well. They've really blown out teams they should blow out. I don't know, maybe the committee's just, well, we've got 2 Big Ten teams already up there. We got to get these Pac-12 teams in here because, for me, USC, Oregon, Utah are all kind of right there. Maybe they're just trying to balance it out. And this isn't truly them thinking that Penn State's only the 11th best team in the country.
Yeah.
Because they've been playing really good football. And as you said, they didn't have the lull that we've seen from them.
Absolutely. Correct. Utah, Colorado, not much of a game here. The Utes get the job done. 63-21. We'll see on Sunday if Coach Prime is the new head coach at Colorado. I don't think he will be. That's my gut. It's Colorado.
Yeah.
It's Colorado, but you never
know. I saw a report today there's 3 teams now. I don't know who the other 2. I haven't even seen any sort of leaks on who the other 2 are.
Nothing else on any of the other schools. Oh, I take that back. Colorado, USF, and Cincinnati.
Oh, really? USF?
Yes. Yeah.
I'd be surprised if I know the Florida connection, but I'd be surprised if he took that one. I hadn't seen that report, so I appreciate you putting that out. Cincinnati might be a good landing place for him, honestly.
Yeah.
Cincinnati might be a really good landing place for him, especially with the fact that they're transitioning to a Power 5 conference here in the next 2 years. I think it is 2024.
2024. Yep.
So
yeah. LSU, A&M. Oh God, I love it when LSU just goes down 38-23. A&M looked like the A&M team that we were supposed to get all season.
Yeah.
They finally come out to play.
Yeah.
Last game of the season, can't hold anything back for them. They're not going to make a bowl game. They end up winning, and then you see everyone just start the transfer portal. I love it. I love the comment the guys made. everyone went there to get the bag of money, and now we're leaving to go where we wanted to go.
Yeah.
Love it. I don't love it. I love it and I don't love it. I love it just because it's Texas A&M and Jimbo Fisher. And it goes back to the whole Saban and Fisher debate back in the beginning of the offseason.
Remember when everybody said Saban was just bitter?
Yeah.
We don't pay. Sounds like there's a little something there.
There's a little teeth to it. There's a little teeth to it. Oh.
Yeah. Man, we didn't buy all our players. Well,
yeah.
The players say otherwise.
Players say otherwise, bud. Love it. Love it.
Yes, sir.
But yeah, A&M playing like they should have been playing all year.
It's almost like they were free agents trying to put some good film out there. Because that, like you said, you put it perfectly. They played. This is the A&M team that, based on the number one recruiting class, and I think they were top 5 last year. Yep. This is the team that we probably should have expected to see all season. But the dysfunction there and the way things have gone, it is interesting to see that they're able to put some good game film out there for the transfer portal.
Absolutely. All righty. UCF, South Florida. UCF gets the job done. This, man, South Florida
dicey.
had it.
Yeah.
This was real dicey. And honestly, I told you, I was like, I don't see that foot going down.
No, I don't think he caught it. I don't think
he did either. I don't think that was a touchdown catch.
I think that knee came down out of bounds, and then the foot touches in bounds. I know they reviewed it, and I only had a couple of looks at it with the replay, the replays that I saw, but I didn't see one that told me he caught the ball. That's all I'm going to say.
Yep. Same here.
Yeah. Crazy.
But the Knights come out on top. They played this weekend for their conference championship. Notre Dame, USC. Man, I was really hoping for an upset here with Notre Dame. I will finally give credit where credit is due. Caleb Williams was a machine.
He's a freak show.
This game.
Yeah. When he's right, of his athleticism and his arm strength and when he's hitting his receivers on target, he's a freak show, man.
And what did I message you though? What did I message you about him?
I don't know if I remember it.
Everyone's talking about AR-15 being a top 4 quarterback.
Oh yeah.
I'm taking Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
And I don't like the guy, but I'm taking Williams
next year. Yep. Yeah. There's a lot of talk that NFL teams are going to be tanking for Caleb next year, and I think next year's quarterback class has real serious potential. I think this year's is pretty good. It kind of petered off as the season went with Levis and Leary getting hurt. And Hooker got hurt, and Stroud has looked a little shaky in the last couple of games here. But I think next year's class, if Drake May declares early, because his first year of NFL eligibility will be next year as a redshirt sophomore. If he declares early, you're looking at Caleb Williams and Drake May maybe headlining that class. It could be a really good class for teams that need a quarterback next year in the NFL.
Absolutely, bud. Absolutely. Tennessee, Vandy, enough said, 56-0, Tennessee. Kansas State, Wildcats getting the job done, 47-27. Kansas kind of ends on a little low note, they are going on.
They were up there most of the season, man. They were up top 10, top 15, top 20, and then they didn't survive the gauntlet of conference play toward the end of the season. And a couple of big losses for them really took them out of the polls. But K-State, what a season for them, man.
Yeah, they'll be playing this weekend against TCU in the Big 12 championship. Last game of the night, late one, Washington State. The Huskies get the job done, 51-33, and good win for Washington there. Good win for Washington.
This was a fucking horse race for a while.
It was, yeah, absolutely.
Washington State and Washington, I think on like 6 consecutive possessions, they scored touchdowns, and they were like big play touchdowns. It was crazy. This game, you couldn't blink your fucking eyes in the first half. Washington kind of pulled away in the second half, but that first half was amazing to watch.
Yep. All right. That's a review of last week's games. Let's go ahead and take a look at this week's matchups for the conference championships here. Starting off Friday, we got Utah, USC. USC is a 3-point favorite, Gary. This is a rematch. Utah gave them their first loss, but it was at Utah.
Yeah, and it was close.
And that was the emotional game too, because Utah had honored 2 players from last season that were killed. So emotional day all the way around for Utah that game. And that was a close one too. That was a 1-possession game that Utah came out on top. But who do you got in this one?
Yeah, and I think for all those reasons, I'm going USC this time around. Neutral site, sort of a home game for USC. It's closer for them. It's not a home game necessarily, but I think they've hit their stride as well too. That offense is humming, and I think that Utah fed off that emotion, but also fed off the fact that they were at home to get that win over USC earlier in the season. I think this is going to be a really exciting nail biter game. Probably comes down to the last possession, and I've got USC. That 3-point number looks probably about right. Maybe by a field goal, maybe by 4. So I think it's going to be a real tight game, real fun game.
Yeah, I'm with you. I want to take Utah just because of USC, but I'm going right there with you, bud. I'm going to take USC as well. Even though I'd like to take Utah, but I'm taking USC as well. So Saturday, Big 12 championship game, Kansas State, TCU. TCU a 2.5-point favorite. Do they stay undefeated?
Yeah, I think they are. There's something going on with TCU. They've just found ways to win games, and I think that they're going to do it again, honestly. Yeah, Aaron, I don't get it. I don't get it because they're really, they had a pretty good non-conference schedule. Yeah, dominated their conference.
Real quick, finish what you want on Kansas State, and I do want to get to this because I knew Aaron be watching tonight.
Yeah.
Finish that, and then we can go talk the Roadrunners.
Yeah. I'm on TCU. It just feels like there's something there that they're just finding ways to win games, and I do think that they're a better team than Kansas State. Although I think Kansas State is a fine team. Give me TCU, give me that offense, that high-powered offense, and think it'll be, again, a tight game. I think we're going to have a really exciting conference championship weekend here with very few exceptions, but give me TCU by a single score.
I'm going Kansas State.
I knew you would.
I'm going Kansas State. I love a little controversy up there in the CFP rankings, so why not? Why not? We've never had. I don't think so, unless maybe last year. But I like to see the controversy, and it'd be interesting to see where the committee puts TCU with a 1 loss.
So, question for you then.
Yes.
If TCU loses a close one here to Kansas State,
yep,
do they drop out or do they drop to 4? Assuming USC wins, Michigan wins, Georgia wins, right? All things equal there. Is a 1-loss TCU that loses in their championship game in over a 1-loss Ohio State that didn't even make it to their championship game?
Well, and so
for you, I'm not asking you to predict the CFP because they're fucking wild cards.
No, I know. And so here's what I would say, and this is where, the playoff and the expanded playoffs, blah, blah, blah. It's tough because they did make it to the conference championship game. but it's also tough that Michigan, Ohio State, they play each other on the last game of the season, both undefeated. The winner of that goes to the championship game.
That was basically the championship game, right?
It was. That should have been. And here in a couple of years, that's, that could be the championship game because they're going to get away with the divisions.
Yeah. And they're just going to take the top two. And that's what they should do.
That's what they should do. And honestly,
there's no reason Purdue should be in the Big Ten championship game.
No, not at all. Not at all. I'm not going to spoil my pick. Maybe. But Ohio State will jump TCU if TCU loses. I know Ohio State lost by almost 3 scores to Michigan, but the conference play is better. Now, I know they had cupcake teams early on in the season, but
that win over Notre Dame looks a lot better now than it did in week 5 also.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, so, I'm with you. I think even I would put – I think the committee does, but I also would, if it were me, I think I would put Ohio State in at 4 over TCU.
Yep.
Who, to me, our feelings about the Big 12 are not secret around here either.
Yeah, and this is what stinks too, is you're penalizing a team, and you're penalizing a team that made it to their conference championship
and had to play that extra game.
Just to be crowned conference champ. Well, hey, TCU, Kansas State, who has the better record? TCU.
Yep.
TCU, regular season Big 12 champions. So it shouldn't matter if they lose in the Big 12 championship game. They should stay where they are because they made it to the championship game as a regular season undefeated team. That's me though.
No, I'm with you. I just think, and that's how it would happen. Aaron, if all 4 lose, I'll be fucking hard on the show next week because it's going to be incredible fodder to talk about. If all 4 fucking teams lose, that would be amazing. That would be amazing. We're looking at like Bama and fucking maybe Utah gets in over USC. Like a 3-loss Utah team could get in over USC. Just wild. I would love if all 4 fucking teams lost. It'd be so much drama. Georgia losing to LSU, who just got boat raced by A&M. Michigan losing to Purdue. Oh man, be a great weekend. And maybe Kansas State. Maybe we get 2 3-loss teams in if all 4 teams lose. With Kansas State maybe sneaking in. Probably not, but it'd be fun. It'd be fun.
So going back to the Roadrunners, because I did want to mention them just because I know Aaron was going to be watching. I was listening to the Roadrunner coach talk this morning. They got a good game going on Friday night. They're an 8.5-point favorite over North Texas for their conference championship. And you mentioned their schedule. They play a pretty tough non-conference schedule, and it only gets worse next year.
Yeah, next year
it only gets worse next year.
Crazy, dude.
So I'm going with the Roadrunners, baby. They're banged up. I know they're banged up. They lost a lot of players from last year, about half that were starters and everything from that conference championship game. They're banged up right now. I'm going Roadrunners though on Friday night, baby.
Yeah, give me the Roadrunners by a bunch, and I think there's one more chance, right? So, Aaron, don't lose hope.
Don't lose faith yet, bud.
If they go and they boat race North Texas, I think they're close. I think they're close to the top 25, and I think if they put on a good show Friday night, I think next week they're going to be somewhere in the bottom part of that top 25, maybe 24, 25. And they're going to get a bigger bowl game, get some more national exposure. They're building a program there, man. They're building a program.
Absolutely. They're putting a lot of money
invested, obviously. Yep, university invested, obviously, with the big facility and the the high tech, state of the art kind of training facilities. So I think so too. With all of the shuffling, it's hard to believe that UTSA, if they continue to dominate that conference, is not going to get some calls. Yeah, Big 12, I can see Big 12. Yep, for sure. Maybe even Pac-12 if they try to reload. It'd be a little weird to have a Texas team in the Pac-12, but
Pac-12's dissolving.
Yeah, maybe. Honestly, the way it's going, it could be. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I think that they're trending in the right direction. Continue to dominate that conference. They'll be in a better conference here soon.
Absolutely. LSU, Georgia. Georgia, 17.5-point favorite here, Gary.
That ain't enough.
Yeah.
That ain't enough.
Go Georgia.
I'd love to see all four lose, but of all of the four games, this is probably the least likely because Purdue's got the pedigree of being the spoiler makers. This is probably the least likely, honestly. I don't like what I see from LSU a lot. They've gotten away with a couple of wins that really made their resume, but Georgia by 25 probably.
I'm saying at least 3.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think Aaron, I do think that's a possibility in the next probably 10 years. It might just be an East-West or a North-South in terms of 2 power conferences, and that's just what we have.
Yeah. UCF, Tulane. Tulane is a 3.5-point favorite. I like it. I'm going Tulane on that one.
Me too. Green Wave, I like where they're headed. Big win last week against Cincinnati, and I think they keep it going this week against a UCF team that struggled against USF.
Yep. Purdue, Michigan, 16.5-point favorite.
I'm going to get my pick out of the way because I've got some anticipation for your pick.
I mean,
Michigan. Yeah, Michigan by a lot.
You know it's coming.
Talk to me, buddy.
You know it's coming.
Talk to me, buddy.
The spoiler makers, baby, are going to spoil it again here.
I like it.
Why
We're
not?
Get some chaos on championship weekend. Spoiler makers.
Why not?
They've got the pedigree.
Yeah, they do. They do. That they do, bud.
Wouldn't that be something, man?
Yeah. Clemson, North Carolina. Clemson, 7.5-point favorite.
I don't like what I've seen from North Carolina the last couple of weeks. However, I'm going North Carolina in this one. I also don't like what I've seen from Clemson from basically the whole season. So give me North Carolina in this one. I just think that they've got enough offensive firepower. Drake May's going to figure it out. He's going to have a good game, a much better game than he had against NC State. And give me UNC over Clemson, man.
I'm with you on it. I'm with you. I think Drake May is going to bounce back. I think North Carolina is going to bounce back after that tough loss to the Wolfpack. Clemson had a tough loss against South Carolina. Honestly, I trust Drake May better than I trust DJ.
Oh, yeah, by a long shot. Absolutely.
So give me North Carolina here.
Absolutely.
Give me North Carolina in the upset.
Yep.
So
absolutely.
That's the slate of games for the big conference games this weekend. Can't wait to see them play out. I hope we have some controversy. I hope we have some
buddy.
just so we can say absolutely this is why we need that expanded playoff much sooner rather than later. Another great weekend of college football, bud. Another great weekend.
The fact that they're waiting on the fucking Rose Bowl to finish the deal with the playoff expansion. Like, what's the Rose Bowl think it's going to do? Hold the whole fucking system hostage? Come on.
I guess they think so, but they think so.
Get the fuck over yourselves.
All right, let's take a little quick sponsor break here. Brought to you by PocketPlayerClub.com. Pocket Player Club, club number 26881 for all of your gambling needs.
All right. That was our sponsor break brought to you by Pocket Pair Club. Thank you for your support of the show. Aaron, real quick, has a question. Do you think we'll get back to Texas versus A&M? Texas joins the SEC. I do think so. I think that Texas ends up in the SEC West with A&M. Oklahoma's probably going to go to the SEC East. So I think we're going to get that. And I think I hope I'm with you. I missed that game. I want as much tradition and heated rivalry as we can get in college football because that's part of what makes it so great. And if we can get that game back on Black Friday, I'd love to see that. I'd love to also see a situation where the SEC finds a way to keep the Red River rivalry going when they make that transition into the SEC. I know there's been talk that it probably won't. I'd love for them to be able to do it, but I do think that this game could get back on the schedule as an institution on Black Friday, as long as the SEC does what I think they're going to do with Texas in the West and Oklahoma going to the East. So love to see it. Like I said, those rivalry games, they're so fun. The tradition of them, the energy in the building when they're played, that's what makes college football so great. The NFL is good. Every week you get something new. But college football, it's the energy that comes with it, the passion, and just the electricity that's in the building, especially for games like that. So I'm with you, Aaron. Would love to see that game back. All right, so we're going to talk Heisman stock report, and we're going to start at number 5 here. And I've got Bijan Robinson. Stove's got Bo Nix. I think this was where he had Bo Nix last week as well. For me, I shuffled a bit, and Stove gave me a little bit of a hard time earlier when I was sending him my picks for 1 through 5 that I shook it up and I moved some guys out that maybe don't need to move out. There's a reason for that. One, I wanted to give some recognition on the show to some people that I've appreciated watching and seeing them play throughout the season. Also, yeah, there you go, San Antonio. Yeah, get it down there. That'd be pretty cool for sure. But Bijan Robinson, dude's an animal. I talked about it. I think he's going to be a top 10 pick next year in the NFL. I think he's going to go to the combine and blow everybody out of the water with his speed, his size, his strength, and his ability to catch the ball. That's really what you need to be in today's NFL to be a top 10 back. You have to be able to do all of those things. And I think that's what Bijan Robinson brings to the table. And he's had a great season. And that game he had against Baylor last week was phenomenal, and it really put a stamp on the season for him and for Texas. So for me, I've got Bijan Robinson here at 5. Wanted to show him a little love. I think the top 2 are decided. That's part of the other reason why I kind of shook things up 3 through 5. I think 1 and 2 are pretty decided. I'm pretty set on who I think is going to win the Heisman. I think Stove's in the same mind frame. So just wanted to give some new guys some love here. Stetson Bennett's a guy who I've had in and then out, and then Stove's had him in, a lot more throughout this season than I have. But I just wanted to show some appreciation for the way they finished the season, the job he did. He didn't put up big numbers. He's not putting up Heisman numbers, but he had a great season. Georgia's obviously undefeated, playing in the SEC title game. So for me, I wanted to get him back in here and just tip my cap a little bit for Stetson Bennett. Stove, you got Drake May at number 4.
I do, bud. I do. And I heard you talking in the background there of your top 5 picks, which basically 1 through 2 are I'm fine with. It's the 3, 4, and 5 issue with, because all of a sudden now we're going to the last, basically, last week of our Heisman stock report, and then you're finally giving people some love, and where you should have been giving people some love early on in the season, and you weren't, and
That's
this
fair.
and that,
That's fair.
blah 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 blah, and then you guys, I don't even want to talk about number 3. I really don't want to talk about number 3. I see why you did it, but holy cow, like wow, like I was flabbergasted, and I think I finally picked my jaw up off the ground, after about 30 minutes of just like looking at that text message you sent me. So without further ado, Gary, number 3 here for you, Max Duggan of TCU. I get it, undefeated season, great. Man, Man, and this is what I don't get. Okay, this is what I don't get. Hendon Hooker was number one in your projected Heisman. He was my projected number one there. He got hurt. Yes. Okay. Hasn't played the last two games. Okay. I get it. But does that give you the goal to just take him out of the Heisman race completely and replace him with a 12-0 TCU quarterback? Or a Bijan Robinson from Texas? Like, I mean, yes, the dude suffered a torn ACL and everything like that, but shit, look what he did for Tennessee and the stats he put up. Shit, that's why he's my number 3 right now. He didn't fall off the face of the earth for me. I still have love for the guy, Gary.
I still have a ton of love for Hendon Hooker.
Doesn't appear to be.
That's a fair assessment by you. That's a fair assessment. But like I said, I'm showing some love here. Undefeated TCU, 1 and 2 are done, right? So for me, I said, you know what? Last week of kind of the Heisman stock report here, I'm gonna shake things up a little bit. I'm gonna give some love to some guys that we really haven't talked about. Bijan, we've talked a little bit more about, but Max has gotten no love so far in the Heisman conversation. We've talked a lot about TCU as the season has gone, obviously for them being in the CFP picture, but he's had a good season too. You know, you can't really shake a stick at his stats. He's got 29 passing touchdowns on the season. I think he's got like 6 or something rushing touchdowns on the season. So he's a guy who's put up some good numbers. It's not obviously Hooker's missed 2 games and he's still got more touchdowns. It's not on that level of prolific stats that we see from the top 2 guys that we've got here either. So, but yeah, I wanted to shake it up a little bit. Show some love to some guys that probably aren't going to get love in New York anyway.
No, they're not. They're definitely not. Now, my number 3, Hendon Hooker, will. I mean, I have no doubt about it. Even torn ACL and all.
I think he'll still be a finalist. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think so. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Number 2 for us, Mr. CJ Stroud.
Yeah, I think we're in lockstep here on kind of why we have 1 and 2 the way we have them. But for me, you know, I was looking at it, and while he's put up a bunch of stats this year, he's also been playing with an unfair stacked deck with all the talent there. Marvin Harrison Jr. is a guy who's he seems like he's just gonna light the NFL on fire, and he's a freshman at fucking Ohio State. That dude is unbelievable. Stroud's put up a ton of numbers, but it comes down to the last couple of weeks for me where he has sort of fallen back a little bit. The guy we have at number 1 has really put his team on his back and turned it on here late in the season. CJ had a bad game against Michigan, had a tough game against Northwestern, and there were times against some lesser teams that he sputtered a little bit. So for me, that's really what makes the difference here. Number 1 for me, I think, is a clear-cut number 1 at this point of the season.
So going to sticking with here with CJ Stroud. Yeah, I'm with you on this. Didn't play to his potential like he had all season. There were a couple games there, blah blah blah, this and that. So let's get to our number 1 here. Oh, what happened? Just giving some love here. Just giving some... Sorry, Gary.
Well done.
I had to delay a little bit.
I see you did that on the fly. Well done.
I did.
Well done.
So yeah, I got Spencer Rattler at number 1, bud. Spencer Rattler number 1, 9 tutties past 2 games. Like, who does that?
Yeah, he's been impressive the last 2 weeks. It's like he announced that he was going to the NFL and decided he wanted to fucking start playing good football. He should have announced as a freshman at Oklahoma that he was going to the NFL. Yeah, he might have been better.
Exactly. Joking aside here, number 1 for both of us, Caleb Williams. That game last week, that solidified it for me. He jumped up for me. I think he was number 2 for me last week. He jumped up to number 1, and lock in step with you on this one.
Yeah, I think he's just he's put himself head and shoulders above CJ Stroud at this point, based on the way they've closed the season. Like I said a moment ago, Stroud has kind of floundered a little bit in these last couple of weeks, whereas Caleb Williams has played better for this USC offense. He's the motor of that offense. He makes it go. And to watch him, sometimes watching him run around, he seems like he's got like a sixth sense, or at least another pair of eyes in the back of his head when he's eluding defenders in the pocket, getting out of tackles. There were a couple this weekend against Notre Dame that he just like he made me stop and think about, like, how did he feel that guy duck under, spin out of it? He's on another level right now, and that, for me, that's what separates him.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree with you. Totally agree. All right, that's our Heisman stock report. Caleb Williams, his to lose, basically. We've talked about the CFP rankings, and really, we don't need to look at 1 through 25. All that really mattered was, almost basically 1 through 6, and we've talked about that. So let's finish the episode with just some college football news, some coaching hires, and still some coaching vacancies. I guess the big ones that this week or weekend, obviously Auburn hiring Hugh Freeze. We've talked about that a little bit. Luke Fickell leaving Cincinnati to go to Wisconsin. And that right there, you said you didn't see it coming, especially after the extension that he signed in February with Cincinnati. But I think Wisconsin was kind of taken aback by it. Definitely the players. There's been a lot of stuff that's came out when he was first hired, or first announced, and the players think that saying that they were lied to, this and that. And Jim Leonard did a good job there as the interim, and a lot of people were thinking that he would get the head coach. So it'll be interesting to see where Jim Leonard goes now. Does he stay with Wisconsin, or does he go elsewhere now?
Yeah, I think that's a similar situation we just talked about Cadillac Williams, right? I think Jim Leonard did a serviceable job there, in the time that he had. And I think if Fickell was to try to keep Jim Leonard on the staff, that'd be a win for them, because I think he's a great coach. I think he's great for that team, that locker room. He's a legend there on campus. But it is weird, right? Like, some of the sentiment that's coming out of Wisconsin, normally when you get one of these kind of high profile hirings, it's all peaches and cream and everybody's, hurrah, hurrah. I wonder how that's going to play now that the transfer portal's open. I wonder how that's going to play in recruiting. Are there going to be questions from parents about, like, hey, how's the locker room? How's things, how's your integration with it? You're new here. How's it going? And he doesn't have the panache in the state of Wisconsin that he would have in the state of Ohio, that he had in the state of Ohio. So, I think it's going to be a bit of a transition. I was just super surprised. I thought it was a step back for Luke Fickell, to be completely frank about it. I thought that he was in a really good position in Cincinnati, and if he was going to leave, I thought it was last year after the CFP appearance. To wait a year and then almost settle, I think, on Wisconsin was very surprising to me. I thought he might hold out for, I don't know, maybe something more high profile. I was really surprised that it was Wisconsin that was able to get him out of Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. That was very surprising to me.
Yeah. It definitely did not see that one coming. Did not see that one coming at all. Yeah. Couple other coaching hires. Arizona hiring the offensive coordinator at Oregon. And then I guess the other big one, my team, the Huskers, getting Matt Rule, who was fired this a couple months ago from the Carolina Panthers, but who had led Baylor and Temple rebuilding years. And going back to the Wisconsin, where the players were, loved Jim Leonard, and everyone in Wisconsin was thinking Jim Leonard would get it. There were a lot of people, myself included, thinking that Mickey Joseph would get it, even though he only won a couple games in his interim. But you saw how the team played as opposed to how they were playing with Frost there. And then once Rule was hired, then it was, okay, does Mickey stay? Does Rule keep him? And really, you would thought by now you'd have that answer. And then just some devastating news coming out of the state of Nebraska tonight. Mickey Joseph was arrested today on suspicion of strangulation and third-degree domestic assault. So Husker fans dodged a bullet with that one. If it holds up, definitely don't need that, as and man, you just pray for everyone involved on that one. Hope everyone is safe and all that. But man, Husker fans know their answer now. I believe. I don't think he's going to be hired, on this. And if true, because always innocent until proven guilty, this and that. But if true, he's not coaching, I don't think, ever again. And that's unfortunate, because he did seem like, he had a good head on his shoulders. Talked with passion, talked with, purpose and everything. And you just did not see that coming from him.
Yeah. You just never know,
Yeah.
You never know. Demons that people are dealing with, those sorts of things. And like you said, you pray for everybody involved. If whoever was also involved in the situation, speedy recovery, health, all of that. And for Mickey, if there are demons there, get help, right? Get help to deal with them. You're going to have repercussions if this is true, but get help, right? And everybody come out on the other side okay. That's the big thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to shift gears on this a little bit, though, because you and I had an interesting conversation, and we don't see this the same way. The hiring of Matt Rule, and you had a really interesting perspective. I was excited about it because I love Matt Rule. I think he's a program builder. I think he's a guy who can bring Nebraska back to prominence. But you had a very interesting take on it that I didn't think about when I was talking about Matt Rule could be a great hire for Nebraska because he could build that program up. So just want to get your thoughts here kind of on the show and why you have a little bit of trepidation about the hire.
Well, I mean, yeah, he's a program builder. Great. I don't think that Nebraska is at the bottom, but they're not at the top though either. They're not even in the middle of the road. So maybe you do need a person like Matt Rule. But my hiccup with it all is you look at his track record. Temple, 3 years, went to a better program in Baylor. Baylor built that program and I will say, in the midst of their almost one of their the death sentence, almost Art Briles, the scandals going on at Baylor, he built that program back up, and after 3 years left for the NFL. And so he's had a taste of the NFL now. He got fired from the NFL. He's had a taste in both worlds now, both college and the pros. And so what's it to say that, okay, yeah, he takes Nebraska from, a 4-win season this year. He takes them to 7-8 wins and then maybe 11-12 wins, next year. And then, maybe he stays for a third year and does the same thing. Then what's not to say that, you have another NFL, you want to try your shot in the NFL again. And I get, you've had coaches that are good in college. They go to the pros. They're not good coaches. Their records don't show, don't reflect the type of coach they are in the pros. They go back to the NFL. And maybe that is Matt Rule here. Maybe he wasn't made for the NFL. Maybe college is where he is. But that's going to be in the back of my mind in the first 3 years, just to see what he does, but just to see, if his name gets put in, the pool for NFL coaching vacancies. Because it happens. Now, you could say, an SEC school comes open. Maybe the Auburn job comes open in 3 years and Cadillac's not there. That's a bigger conference, a better conference, a lot of people would say, than the Big Ten. Do you go there? Does someone flip the checkbook out? And so it's I like, after listening to his press conference and everything, I'm more on board with him, but I'm still going to have that thought process in the back of my mind for these first couple years. But I'm with you. I hope. I've seen his track record at his previous stints, and I hope he can do that to Nebraska, because as a Husker fan, and I know Gary, not as a don't have a college team per se, but as a Washington fan, you would love for someone like Matt Rule. You would love Matt Rule to come into Washington and take over the head coaching position, right there in Washington, because you see his track record and everything. And given his track record at Carolina, he's never had a true quarterback, and McCaffrey wasn't healthy all the time, so there, I don't think he got a fair shake there. But at the end of the day, everything comes down to wins and losses. That's all it comes down to, both the pro level and the college level. So I am excited for it. He's bringing some of his, he's basically bringing the band back together with him. So, and one thing I didn't know until the press conference and everything else, and after doing some more research on Matt Rule, when he took that Baylor job, he's a Northeast guy. He went to Penn State as a walk-on. When he took that Baylor job, he knew nothing about the state of football there in Texas.
Yeah.
He went out and hired high school coaches for his Baylor staff.
Because they knew the landscape.
They knew the landscape. And now look at where some of those coaches are. They're considered one of the best D-line, D coordinators, offensive coordinators in college football or in the NFL. It's so, he may be the perfect fit for the head coach, but he's a smart individual to where he will surround himself with people that know more on, the different aspects or different, their niche.
Yep. Smart people, and just as a generality, smart people that also surround themselves with smart people are the ones that breed success. And I think that's what Matt Rule does. He's kind of a CEO of the program. Obviously he's got his hands in the pot, helping cook everything up. But like you said, he makes the right hires. He did it at Temple as well. He brought in a lot of guys that could help him develop talent, develop young guys, and did it in Texas. Go out and get those high school coaches that know the state of Texas. They know the landscape. They know how to handle things in the state of Texas. And they've, like you said, they've gone on to successful careers themselves. So I'm excited for it. I'm excited for you. I love Matt Rule. I wanted him in Washington before we hired Ron Rivera. And I think that I still believe that he would have been a good hire. Like you said, he didn't get a fair shake in Carolina. That was a bad roster. They never got a quarterback. McCaffrey was always hurt. But yeah, you're absolutely, your concerns are founded. They have they have a lot of legitimacy because that NFL itch may, rear its head again here in the next couple of years. I hope not. I hope he gets Nebraska back into national prominence and just stays there for a long time. But I didn't think about that when I first thought about the hire. I thought mainly just about what Matt Rule can do to build a program.
Sure.
But you're absolutely right. All right, Aaron's got one last question for us, and this is always one that comes up, right? NFL stock for guys that are uber athletic, uber talented. Frank Harris might come back for his last year. Is it a good idea considering injuries? Get a paycheck. I think that Aaron wants to see him stay. I think he should, and I'm gonna say it for one main reason is Frank Harris is a 6th or 7th round pick. Somebody's going to take him as a possible project, maybe a backup. It might even be like a Baltimore that puts a guy behind Lamar Jackson that has a similar skill set. Not saying that Frank Harris is Lamar Jackson. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. But I think Frank Harris is very good. But one more year of growth before he goes and puts himself in front of the NFL scouts at the combine, I think would be a good thing for him. I know the injuries are a concern, but I'd like to see him come back. I'd like to see him work on things like footwork in the pocket, staying in the pocket a little more, and being judicious with his legs, because I think the injuries that he runs into, that he has in his career, are because he tries to make too much out of a play. I think that I'd like to see him work on a little discipline. I also think it'd be really good for the UTSA program if they had one more year with Frank Harris and were able to kind of make that transition, figure out who the next guy is, because he's a fucking legend on that campus.
Absolutely. I'm in total agreement with you on that one. Yeah. Oh. All right. Gary, that does it for this week's episode of Tailgate Trash Talk. We got some great games this weekend, conference championship games. Looking forward to it. See how it all shakes out, to see who the Final Four will be for that CFP playoff, baby. And I know you do too. I hope we have some controversy. I hope we have some upsets this weekend to where it puts that CFP committee on the spot to see if they hold true to what they've been saying all year. It will definitely be interesting come next week when they do the final CFP rankings.
Yeah, I want chaos.
Yes, sir. Another good Saturday of college football and the conference championships games. Gary, always appreciate it, sir.
Always a pleasure.
For my man Gary, I'm Big Stove. We are out.